We are the show that asks the question, what happens when investors pitch you, founders? Over the next 45 minutes, we're going to be having a conversation with one of Buffalo's great founders, one of your extraordinary ecosystem leaders and builders over the last decade and a half. And then in our third act, we're going to be having two investors who have traveled far from Los Angeles and New York City, respectively, to pitch that founder we're going to meet right in the beginning, right? A little bit reverse Shark Tank, a little bit friendly conversation, and the stakes are high because one of these investors is going to win the right to invest. Thank you. These folks are paid. And those folks seem enthusiastic. So Cheryl, one of the things that we see in all the companies these days that apply to be on the show, or almost all of them, is that they are AI enabled. What is AI doing for you this week? What's going on in your life? What kind of tools are you messing with?
AI enabled, AI native, agentic, it's all these buzzwords, and quite frankly, AI is kind of taking over my life. Like even until 2 a.m. I was vibe coding yesterday while also, like practicing today, and like it just feels very much like MySpace circa 2000s when you could actually write some code and see it reflected and just all the magic. That's how it feels for AI. While at the same time, I woke up, 4 hours later to my mom sending me AI slop from YouTube of like the Trump and the Pope in a boxing match. So whether it's my mom or it's me, like I feel like we all are using AI in one way, shape, or form. And so I don't really know what to make of it, but what do you see?
What do I see? I see, first of all, that distinction, like is it AI native, is it AI enabled? That's something we see in pitches all the time. Mm-hmm. And what I kind of think is that if software is going to just be intelligent, then we're really standing at the precipice of something that was a lot like the internet or the social internet when you were alluding to MySpace, which is just, it's de facto, right? If you're in building software, you're AI or you're not. And that's certainly the case of the founder today. Can I also just get a show of hands before we do this? And maybe this is a little bit gratuitous, but how many of you here are actually from Buffalo? How many of you come and brought?
Yes, cool. Amazing.
So this is our first time on the road. We're coming from downstate. And there's just so much enthusiasm here for what's happening in the startup ecosystem and for what different founders are building. This is my hope, at least, but do you feel like ecosystems like this can grow even more in the AI era because AI is kind of an equalizer, it's a democratizer?
Absolutely, yes, definitely. AI is a great equalizer of our times, but as more and more we kind of question what to even trust, I think people and community are number one. Actually, when I was flying here, I saw how y'all were cheering for the Sabres on the plane, which was great, and I was so confused, but then I realized Buffalo has an amazing spirit, and that's what we love about it, and that's why we're so happy we're here, and I think that Buffalo is set up for success because you all already have an amazing community.
Yeah, and it's the kind of place where you really shouldn't do gratuitous things to get applause, like you shouldn't probably yell, "Go Sabres!"
Woo!
Because it's not going to yield any excitement. But you've heard enough from us, and it's now time to actually introduce our founder, not our founder, frankly, he's your founder. He's just on loan for today. The co-founder and CEO of Finta, Kevin Siskar. He's going to come and talk a bit about his startup, and then we're going to talk to him about his startup. Kevin, come on up.
Over the last decade, I ran accelerators, I worked at funds, and we saw something through helping our portfolio companies, that warm intros are 9 times more likely to close than cold outreach. And current CRMs aren't built for this. What we saw was people sourcing leads, struggling to use LinkedIn to map warm intros, which has no API, cloning a Google Drive data room, right, and managing the pipeline, signing the docs. And so we built a system called Finta that brings all this into one place, one intelligent, cohesive environment. Aurora is our AI that can work over that. And what we could do is quickly take people's networks, take people's connections, map them, string them together, and help them unlock those pathways to get warm intros to potential investors, job seekers, really any sort of warm intro workflow. We did about 91,000 in revenue last year, and we're growing right now. And we drive deals forward, and that is my 60 seconds on Finta.
Woo!
Finta. If we can take more than 60 seconds, I know that we both have a few follow-up questions.
Do it.
Founder market fit is a question that you get asked all the time as you're out there raising, and it's something that I know that the investors competing today are going to be asking you about. Why you? What makes you unique in terms of building this product? Why is this the thing you need to be delivering to the world?
Yeah, I think what the unique perspective I had is that we built this thing called Founder Institute that we scaled to 200 cities around the world, 4,000 companies, and so every Monday I would be on a call with the other directors in Toronto, Sydney, Australia, London, and everyone's having the same problem, right? Silicon Valley is globalizing, but nobody knows how to fundraise, leverage these connections, and so we sort of accidentally built the software to operationalize that front half of the person running the deal. So whether you're fundraising for your company or a VC fund, and now we're seeing use cases where people are using it for their own sales and marketing, when there's like a high ticket sale, like a 20K contract, all that stuff's warm intro driven. And so that's sort of how we started, and that's where we expanded. And I think it was only through that work and those insights that we were able to see that.
Amazing. I saw that you already had some traction, so I'm wondering, why are you looking for a VC in the first place?
Yeah, so we need more money to grow. We're an AI company, so everything a user does costs us money. Whether they are chatting with Aurora or we're embedding documents, we need money to cover that. And to date, we need to bring a lot of the team full time. So we need to bring some people on as well.
Aurora, what is Aurora?
So Aurora is our own internal AI. We can run ChatGPT, Google Gemini, or Anthropic's Claude models within Aurora, and it goes over your emails, your calendar, your documents. So just the other day, I said, hey, who's in my pipeline? Looked through all 700 people, told me who to follow up with, checked my inbox for recent convos, and then drafted a reply to help push it forward.
And convo is what they say in Western New York instead of conversation? Is
That's
that what-
correct. That's correct. We say soda pop, convo, and chicken wings, not buffalo wings.
Oh, ooh.
There you go. That makes sense.
Good to know.
I'm learning. I'm learning.
So let's talk a little bit about your market strategy. Are you thinking about going more towards B2B, more B2C? Where have you seen most progress, and kind of where do you want to go?
Yeah, so feedback unanimously from investors is that the VC market's too small. And so we have been laying the framework over the last 6 months. We actually just built a brand new version of the platform from the ground up, using everything we've learned, and that is releasing this week to our current customers, and we'll be releasing it in the next 2 weeks publicly. And then we're expanding the workflow. So anyone that has warm intro workflows, like students who want to get a job, those tend to go through mutual connections. We want to help them sync their emails, sync their inbox, sync their LinkedIn, sort all those relationships, and then use those intro pathways to run their process.
What, I have so many follow-ups to that, but I'm going to ask a big one here, which is, what is the benefit of building in Buffalo?
The benefit to building in Buffalo is we could have a very low burn, right? We have access to talent from the University of Buffalo, so we work closely with the University of Buffalo. The co-lab there has given us many great internships that have turned into being, full-time employees. The University of Buffalo has also invested, which has been great. And it's been a really good home base, and it's still geographically located. So I was able to be in Boston last week, New York the week before, and still have that, sort of global reach while being here, close to friends, family, and where we want to build.
I love that. And think about big vision, what you would want Finta to become in a way, and kind of what would the exit look like?
Yeah, well, anything less than $2 trillion isn't in vogue anymore. So,
yeah, okay, good to know.
I guess, trillion, is a trillion good?
Fair.
I've heard that some companies in 2026 are going for a gajillion, which I think is a real.
Is that the next number?
Google.
It's a real number.
Yeah, but who would you want to see acquire it, or what is the big vision that you'd want to?
Yeah, I think we want to see Finta get as big as it can get, which is why we're opening the aperture, right? And we're already seeing more people using it in these different ways. And again, that's sort of been enabled by AI being able to do more, right? So, not to get too nerdy, but tool calling can now be expanded to check into the inbox, check into it, and we can connect those things in new ways.
I also just want to say, not to get too nerdy, look at everybody. My God, we are ready to nerd out here. This is a startup event.
Yeah, so I think, there are lots of companies that could buy it. Carta bought a CRM last week, and so Fidelity, Private Share, some of those other companies could definitely acquire it and bolt on that CRM in front of the deal closing docs. So Prequin sold for, I think, $1 billion. There's a bunch, yeah.
Finally, because we need to move on to our next segment, and Kevin, we can't be more thankful that you've agreed to do this with us today. Every Buffalonian probably has an answer, but in terms of favorite musical children of this great city, Rick James or Goo Goo Dolls?
Goo Goo Dolls. Goo Goo Dolls all day.
Kevin Siskar, everybody, the co-founder and CEO of Finta. You all kind of know the history of this great city and this region in a way that I didn't. So I got to learn in the last couple of days. I got to do a bit of research, right? I've had the privilege of visiting 43 North. Cheryl has been a
judge back in the day, pandemic vibes, you know?
Yeah, I don't know what that, Cheryl brought the pandemic to 43 North, apparently. I don't know what that means.
No.
But we've also had an opportunity to learn about the development of the ecosystem, and I learned that from our new friend, Anthony. And Anthony Santaro is going to come up and actually talk to us a little bit more about what he's seen, where we've been, and where we're going. Anthony, come on up, my friend. Thanks so much. One of the things about being from New York City, which Cheryl and I sort of unapologetically are, we are loud, we're brash, we're both unusually tall. Like, I think there's, so I guess we kind of want to be buildings, is what I've learned. We want skyscrapers. We want to be the city we're from. But I have family in Buffalo, and I've loved coming here my whole life. What do you get to do all day long, and how do you get to do it in Buffalo? That's really the question.
Yeah, and I want to thank you guys for coming out to the ecosystem and really putting a spotlight on it. And it was funny because born and raised in Syracuse, New York, so about 2.5 hours away from Buffalo, but we did have the great fortune of backing Buffalo's first unicorn, and I think it was upstate New York's first unicorn in ACV auctions. And you had mentioned...
A round of applause.
You had mentioned the community, which I think is something so special that Buffalo in particular has. And so one of the stories that my partner Somak likes to tell is when ACV was going to raise I think it was their Series C or their Series D, and they were looking to bring on a really strong COO to complement the CEO, George. And Somak, from his days back in college, knew Vikas Mehta, who was a senior executive at eBay. And so had tremendous amount of marketplace experience. And so he was really trying to sell him on leaving the Silicon Valley and broader California weather into coming to Buffalo, New York, which is admittedly a tough sell. And so
you like what you experience all day long? Now imagine the opposite.
I like to say it makes me appreciate the warmer weather. So you have to have the bad days to appreciate the good days.
Marketing.
And so you laugh, but he did come, I want to say in November, and it was an uncharacteristically warm day. It was like 70 degrees. So the joke was, this is how it's like every day here in November. Obviously not being the case because it was 30 yesterday in April.
One of these trademark 75-degree Buffalo falls. Right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, very balmy. And so he came, and the entire community really rallied around having the opportunity of bringing in an executive like this. So one of the things that Buffalo has, aside from great chicken wings, is really a world-class contemporary art museum in the AKG, formerly known as the Albright Knox. And so the director there gave him a private tour and helped to kind of showcase some of the culture and some of the institutions that Buffalo has. And I think that's just one small story of a really great example of the community really rolling out the red carpet because they understand how important it is for companies to be born here and continue to grow here. And now, looking forward 10 years, ACV is a public company, and I think it employs something like 2,000 people, with the vast majority being here in the Buffalo ecosystem.
Yeah, how are you seeing these industries that are not as glamorous per se, but that are actually core to Buffalo, and how maybe AI could either append it or support it?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I think Buffalo has a really lot of great subsectors that kind of make up the broader economy. So you have the healthcare system with Kaleida Health and Roswell, which is a leading cancer center. With financial services, M&T Bank is located here, headquartered here. There's a slew of smaller regional and credit unions. There's a lot of advanced manufacturing in the aerospace defense kind of auto space. So Tesla has one of their gigafactories here. Moog has defense here. And so what you'll see is that from a startup angle, and especially now being able to apply AI, which is one of our core theses, is the broader digitization of these old line industries that I just mentioned. And so having these homegrown kind of customers that have these manufacturing centers, that have these health systems, that have thousands of their employees here, they're again a really captive audience for pilots, design partners, obviously full-scale contracts, that I think makes building here really attractive.
Where is Buffalo in the broader upstate or western New York region? Like, one of the things we get to see when we come up here is that it's not just this city, but it's the surrounding area. And you've decided to plant yourself in the middle of all of it. So we've focused a lot on Buffalo, but one of Cheryl and I, we discuss this all the time, this idea that anyone kind of can build from everywhere. So counterpoint, do people need to come here and make it a hub?
I think that's helping, that there are people that want to be here and to create this kind of hub in Buffalo, but you nailed a key point, Matt, which is there's this broader upstate ecosystem.
Yeah.
So there's not just Buffalo, there's Rochester, like an hour and a half away. Like I mentioned, I live in Syracuse, 2.5 hours away. You have Albany, there's Binghamton. So those are kind of like the 5 main upstate cities.
Is Ithaca part of that network?
Ithaca's huge, right?
It's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. And they have Cornell, they have Ithaca College, and they're just one of the leading research centers and academic institutions in the country. And so it's amazing to have that kind of right in the backyard as well. And so I think it's helpful, and we're seeing a lot of boomerangs that maybe they grew up in one of these, 4 or 5 different cities. They spent time in Boston, they spent time in New York, and then, for quality of life reasons, they want to come back to Buffalo or Syracuse or whatever it may be. And so I think expanding the vision, and so obviously Buffalo and Buffalonians have a lot of pride in the city, but I think that there's this greater affinity towards upstate New York as a whole. And so we in Syracuse love backing the Sabres and the Bills and all the institutions that make up Buffalo. Hopefully they cheer for my Syracuse Orange in return. But I think you bring up a really good point, that it isn't just one city, although Buffalo, I think, is the largest upstate New York city, and it is really leading the charge. And I think when you look at the 4 or 5 different cities, Buffalo is certainly the most mature and kind of developed tech ecosystem.
What about you, just personally?
Yeah.
Like, what instead of Syracuse, you're in Buffalo, and so tell me more about how you think about your life and maybe your family and kind of like your wishes for the future.
Yeah, so I joke, my family immigrated from Italy in the late 1800s, and as soon as they got off the boat, they came right up here to upstate New York, and now, whatever it is, 140 years later, we'd never left. So there's something about the region that's really struck near and dear to our hearts over whatever it is, 5 or 6 successive generations. And we spend a lot of time in, from my fund at Armory Square Ventures, we have an office in New York City as well. We have a lot of portfolio companies in New York. We have a lot of companies in Buffalo, but we like to spend time in the Midwest and Northeast. And I think it was because we feel people tackling real urgent problems. And you talked earlier about having founder market fit, and the founders that are approaching these problems truly kind of, I think, personify that because they've worked in automotive or in healthcare or whatever industry that they're coming from. So it's not just kind of a smooth 20-year-old or very intelligent, younger person, which is amazing, right? But these are generally people that maybe are a little bit older that worked in industry for 10, 20 plus years that want to tackle this head on.
What are some of the things you'd like to see so that any entrepreneurs out there listening, maybe start building them if you want to check. But also, what are some of the kind of companies that you would imagine can really flourish in the next 5 years that couldn't have, as Kevin said 2-3 years ago, given how things are moving so fast?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And so, some of the areas that we're looking at now in terms of our near-term investment pipeline would be companies that have a hardware-software solution in the manufacturing center. And so they do something called continuous manufacturing, which can be trusses for your house, it could be parachute manufacturing, it can be rolled manufacturers. So it's one of those sneaky big industries, and they call them these kind of ghost billion-dollar companies because I don't think there's an appreciation like there is for a hot tech startup when you have a manufacturing center that would be worth $1 billion of enterprise value. But it's a very core segment to a lot of these regions. And so when you look at the capabilities of AI, it allows you to be, I think, more flexible with the team and allow a smaller team to do more. So productivity is going on. I think it gives you a much greater product reach that you might not have been able to have, to Kevin's point, 2, 3, 4 years ago. And so I think we're seeing a lot more of a proliferation of those companies, and it's been really exciting, and it's certainly been a boon to our investment thesis. Of course, we spend the majority of our time looking at B2B software companies, B2B marketplace companies as a whole, but it is cool to see the mashup of the hardware-software enablement.
I think if anything, we're seeing a whole bunch of bifurcation within VC, right? Of VCs that are the mega funds, and then the ones that are super specialists, which include hardware, and then there's this middle death zone, I would say, right? Of VCs that don't know necessarily where to specialize and are stuck in the middle with their AUMs. And so I'm just curious, is that partially a play for longevity, or how are you thinking about this current environment?
Yeah, so going back, our fund, Armory Square Ventures, was founded in 2014. Actually, the same year, I think, as 43 North, which has done an amazing job for this Buffalo ecosystem.
Yeah.
And it's been...
I'm a fan. I loved my experience.
It was beautiful, yeah.
It was awesome.
It's so, they really are a catalyst for this entire community, and to have a physical space that tech-forward people, entrepreneurial people can work out of the amazing lobby here on the 43 North floor, and the fact that they bring in a cohort of companies across the nation year in and year out, it helps to kind of inject a lifeblood into the community that I think it really keeps it exciting, young, and innovative. And so it's really amazing. But going back to our fund thesis, one of the core things that we've always focused on was what we call the digitization of old line industries. So that's been something that even pre-AI has been more than focused on vertical SaaS applications, but also marketplaces. So that's been something that's been kind of a throughput throughout the last 12 years or so.
Okay, so you said you're not new to this, you're true to this.
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing. Got it. Okay.
You put it much better than I did, so thank you.
Anthony, this was such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for what you're doing for this ecosystem. Thank you for taking time with us. And we'll see you on the other side when you're writing
Thank you
checks
so
to
much.
someone.
Appreciate it, guys.
We like to say that in this AI-enabled or AI-native era, investors need to come with more than a check, right? If, as we've learned in these last two conversations, neither technology nor capital are the moats, what can investors really look for in a startup? What kind of probing questions should they be asking? And can the founder really take that power back and stick to the driver's seat, right? As tough as this is, please keep the following VCs in your hearts. And welcome back to the stage, Kevin, and also our competitors today, Laurent and Ilona. It's the right to invest. Let's go.
Thank you guys both. I know that you both flew in LA and New York City. Very much appreciated. Let's start with some intros. Where are you guys coming from? What are you up to? Ilona?
Yeah, super excited to be here with y'all. It's also my first time in Buffalo. I choose to believe that I'm the reason that the Sabres won because is it really a coincidence that when I flew in, they broke their drought? There we go. But it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm super excited to earn my right to invest into Finta. So one thing that you should know about me is that I've never had a roadmap. My entire life has been what I would describe as non-obvious. So I was born in Cuba. I'm the daughter of immigrants. My mother's from Russia, my father's from Cuba. I grew up in Kentucky. And as you can probably tell, those three places have absolutely nothing in common with each other. But at a young age, I was constantly having to translate not only language, but also context and culture. And so that taught me a lot. And over time, I learned something. And that was that the more that you're able to sit and to observe and to really see what's going on around you, you're able to see things and patterns that other people are missing out on. And that built a kind of intuition or sort of like a compass for me. And that led me first to Netflix. At the time that I joined, our share price was $45. And everyone was telling me that there's no way that Netflix can pivot from DVDs and shift into original streaming. But I think I saw something that, again, if I sat with it and I saw the patterns and I recognized the potential in media infrastructure that Netflix was building out. That same intuition, that same instinct led me to Vanguard, where I helped lead the first ever acquisition, and to this date, the only acquisition that the company ever did into a small fintech platform. And that same instinct led me to the Hilton Foundation, where I led allocation of a $7 billion global portfolio. And last but not least, the instinct led me to Forbes, where now I have the chance to cover not only early stage fintech founders. I like having a prop. Where I cover not only early fintechs, early founders, as well as some of the largest Fortune 500 companies and sharing announcements before they're on Bloomberg or the Wall Street Journal. And what I picked up on is like a pattern, which is that early stage founders building in super regulated, complicated infrastructure are often overlooked by traditional venture capital investors. They think that the markets that Finta is operating are too opaque, too fragmented, too difficult to scale. And I think that they're missing out on a really obvious pattern. And so I'm building my platform Armada to back pre-obvious founders in building an infrastructure solutions in regulated markets. I want to earn your right to invest because I'm also building a platform. I'm a founder myself in a lot of ways. And so I want to bring that hustle, that energy into what you're building to at Finta. And the last thing that I'll say is everything that I approach is quite intentional. So even the name Armada is an homage to my parents. They were naval engineers. And the concept of something greater than the whole combining to build something impactful and meaningful is really what drives me. I'd love to be able to bring my Armada to bear and to support Finta.
I love everything you said. Round of applause for your introduction from everybody. Laurent.
Hi, everyone. Laurent Span, co-founder at Peer, invest through Span Ventures and Audible, originally from Northeast New Jersey and now living in New York City. It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be in Buffalo. One of my best friends and college roommate is from Buffalo, so I got to see him yesterday. So things have been great in being able to get more acclimated to the city. My background's quite interesting of how I got to venture. I was a former Division I golfer in college, thought I was going to turn pro. After college, realized I did not want to live in my car, so decided to go to Wall Street and get some formal training. Had a very short stint as an insurance-linked securities trader, then spent the majority of my corporate career alongside other brokers, primarily looking at D&O, E&O, fiduciary, large market, Fortune 500 insurance programs, risk programs, et cetera. And then decided that I wanted to be able to have more ownership of how I put capital to work. So for me, that looked through a lot of different aspects of private markets, alternative assets, et cetera. And the biggest why and the biggest reason I wanted to get into venture is because I figured that it was a way that I could directly put a single dollar to work, investing in someone else's beliefs or ideas that are going to be able to revolutionize and change the way that we live for the better. So in that same vein, went out and started Span Ventures, where we invest primarily in insurtech and consumer, pre-seed and seed checks, then also have spent a lot of time supporting Audible's CVC arm on the media and consumer side. And then most recently, started to realize that deploying capital is only great when you can do it and be able to facilitate the right folks around the room. So then went out and co-founded Peer, which is our private allocators network of GPs, LPs, and family offices, amongst a shared mission of being able to bring capital together and then being able to showcase where that capital gets deployed through our specific GP and LP fund exchange, et cetera. So with that being said, our value and the value that I feel that I bring to the table is not only the direct network access and community access, but the vast options of where we're able to support founders across our media, across our tech, across our consumer, across GPs, LPs, et cetera, and really understanding of the power of networking community and the power of how that drives directly into CRM management.
All right. I love that as well. Round of applause for Laurent here as well. All right, cool. So one of my first questions is, if I were to call one of your portfolio companies and ask them what they'd say about you, what would they say? How are you helpful?
In the weeds.
Okay.
In the weeds. One of my first investments was Beagle Labs. They're an insurtech platform based in New Jersey. Multiple late night phone calls, multiple ways of being able to utilize my background and my insurance contacts, being able to support their businesses and their business initiatives from the earliest stage. They recently just raised a $4 million seed round, and we were the first check-in for their pre-seed round about 2 years ago. So really, I would say just in the weeds, like trying to be as helpful as I can, not trying to show you how to run your business, but trying to be a really strong operational partner.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll say that the founders in my portfolio would say that no one works harder than I do, even before we write the check. So I recently invested in an early stage company called Ready. They're providing international pension plan solutions to US-based small businesses who have global distributed workforces. And I spent about a year diligencing that company before ever making the underwriting decision. And in that year, I introduced the founder to key relationships from my time at Vanguard, to other founders in my network building and related spaces. And through that, the founder was able to secure a custodian with BlackRock, which is one of the biggest, obviously, names in asset management, before he ever even built the product, and was able to get regulatory approval in order to then, to build the company. And so, if you asked Armand, I think he would hopefully map that entire journey. And that was before I even ever came in as an investor. So, kind of echoing what Laurent said, our value is not just capital; it's grit and hard work.
All right. One of the things we want is long-term partners, right? So we think about initial investment, check size, but then also follow-on investment down the road. It sounds like, Laurent, that's something that you guys do as well. So maybe I'll start with you. How do you think about initial check size and potential follow-on?
Yeah, right after we write the first check, we're trying to figure out how do we support for the forthcoming and future raises. So whether that be looking within our network of being able to find strategic partners and individuals that either could come from a high net worth background, maybe from an institutional background, maybe even a strategic partner, right? A long-term play acquirer, for example. Really looking deeply and seeing what is it that you need to get to that next level and who is the best to support that. So that's what I would say from a more broad perspective of how we look at that.
Yeah, I would say that, the fund that I'm building is a bit smaller, 5 million. So with that, there's not a lot of room for follow-ons to deploy. I'm being intentional about that and optimizing for a number of shots on goal at the early stages to make sure I can distribute capital back to limited partners. With that being said, as a first check of 100 to 150K, from the moment we do initial underwriting, our focus is on supporting you with subsequent raises. And I can tell you that I'm having conversations constantly with founders who are bringing good news, such as, oh, we're about to close this term sheet, but we actually scored this really huge partnership agreement that's going to double our revenue. How should we think about those terms? How should we think about positioning that for seed, for Series A? So at the time of initial underwriting, even if it's an earlier stage pre-seed deal, I'm already thinking actively about, okay, what are some later stage investors that would be interested in this? How could we get growth equity involved potentially as you scale? And so that's always top of mind, and those are relationships that I seek to tap into as you build your company too.
All right, I love that. I know that you talked a little bit about Netflix and DVDs and being through a technology wave change, right? And I think there is a lot of perspective that's gained through watching the rise of mobile and watching a whole wave play out and then the new one starting, right? So Alana, back to you first, but how do you use AI yourself? So like, how do you use it in your day-to-day? How familiar are you with it? And then how do you see the potential opportunity for Finta with this new wave of technology starting?
Yeah, I've been using AI in my day-to-day for literally everything that I do, whether it's organizing my calendar, sending emails. I also, I create a lot of content. As I mentioned, I'm a contributing writer for Forbes. I also have an NPR distributed podcast. I could not do people ask, like, how am I able to provide this kind of output? I could not do the work that I do without heavy support from my friends Claude and ChatGPT, as well as some AI native solutions. So I think being at the forefront of utilizing technology is super important, because if you're not using the tools directly yourself, how are you able to then underwrite it? And I think to your point about where AI is going, I recently spoke with the CTO of Zoom, and he had a quote that really stuck with me, and he said that things don't fall apart during the meetings. They fall apart after. And that's why I think is super exciting about the opportunity that you're building with Finta, because you're building in that layer of collaboration, of compiling fragmented pieces of information and being able to action on that quickly, right? Because all of us can relate to having super positive Zoom calls, virtual coffee chats, et cetera, and then afterwards go into your notes and thinking, okay, now like who can action this for me, right? And so as both a user and kind of a connector in the ecosystem, I'm super excited about the opportunity in the space.
All right, Laurent?
Yeah, I think for us, it's really understanding how strongly our relationships built post-meeting, right? I think it can be taken to when you go to a conference like here, when you go to a networking event, you get a business card, you meet someone, how likely are you to follow up with them, right? But then you wait a couple of days and then you realize, then maybe the value add might have fallen through the cracks. We see that time and time again with how we've built Peer, for example, right? Being able to understand who is it directly that we want to be able to interact with, who's it directly that you might have some synergies from a fund management perspective, from an LP perspective, right? And so being able to take those learnings and those add-ons and initiatives directly and relate that to Finta is where we find that strategic value play. And also being able to share and showcase some of the data insights that we've learned, and also share and showcase some of the ways that we found that the best ways of utilizing an execution layer similar to Finta.
All right. Last question for you both. Now that you know a little bit about Finta, you know a little bit about each other, why are you the better investor for Finta?
Sure, I can kick it off since I started the intro. Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier in my introduction, building in highly regulated markets such as the one that you're optimizing for is something that I've been super comfortable with for the last decade of my career, whether it was an early stage investor or as an operator, whether it was at Netflix or Vanguard. I'm also super excited by this opportunity because I've covered a ton of companies building specific like AI solutions for specific verticals such as small business, medical practices, et cetera. So I've picked up on so many patterns over this coverage and over this period of talking to founders. I'd love to be able to brainstorm with you and thinking through like how are you thinking about go-to-market, customer acquisition, and really learning from some of those patterns. And then last but not least, being able to connect you to some of the great advisors and folks in my network who are at some of the biggest companies in the world thinking about these challenges and giving you that direct through line. And yeah, working with you in tandem, being that text message or that call at any hour of the day to think through whether it's like who should you hire, how should you think about your next product feature. So yeah, I'm genuinely energized by what you're building.
All right, Laurent?
Yes. The biggest one for us is utilizing or focusing the statement of capital through collaboration. We use that every single day with Peer. I use that every single day with how I invest through Span Ventures and how I invest through Audible. And seeing what you've built, specifically in the CRM space, right? Being able to utilize the power of your network, harness that, and showcase how do we drive collaboration through that metric. I feel that I'm the best investor to support that, given the background, given where I sit day to day, and how strongly we support through capital, through collaboration, and how strongly we feel through the utilization of that statement on a day-to-day basis.
All right. Well, thank you both. I can tell you that I'm sitting here and I'm yin-yanging back and forth, so this has not been easy. All right, Matt, I think I have the answer here for you.
Okay, will you please rise?
All right, folks. This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Hope.
And if it's a moment that has prevented you from going and getting a sandwich, then I've got news for you. It's come down to the wire. You saw it.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Can we get a drum roll? Something drum roll. Everybody drum your seats. Come on now. This is it. All right. This is real. And I don't know what. I don't have any idea what's about to happen.
Feels like
The
American
winner of the right to invest in Finta is Ilona. Congratulations, Ilona.
Congratulations. Well, first,
Thank you.
you hard fought. What is going through your mind right now? Your final words.
Bummed. Bummed. But very happy, and I know that you're going to have a strong investor in your cap table. So,
Perfect. Well, thank you
Thank you.
so much. And then,
thank you.
yay,
Thank you.
Ilona, tell us a little bit more about what you're thinking and next steps.
I'm honestly so thrilled, legitimately. I think I was so impressed, Laurent, with the answers that you were providing. And I was like, yeah, I do capital through collaboration too. I was like getting a little bit defensive. No, but genuinely so thrilled. It was a pleasure to be on stage, sharing our perspectives and also learning from other great investors. I really enjoy learning about what you're building. And I'm genuinely excited to collaborate with you on the amazing things that you're going to be doing too. So thank you so much.
Woo woo!
There you are.
A right to invest plus some swag. One more round of applause for our winner. One more round of applause for Laurent. And one more round of applause for Buffalo's own Kevin Siskar. Kevin, thank you so much. Ilona, thank you so much. All right, so as we bring this to the end of the night, the end of the lunch hour, I really need to learn what time of day it is. I feel like being inside is not helping me. Look, Cheryl and I are both unusual in a number of ways, as you can tell clearly. My gosh. And that we perform, sure, but also we are investors.
Yes.
And we have been founders. And so we put this whole program together on the idea that too often founders like Kevin are unable to have the kind of discussion that you just saw, where investors are actually poked and prodded a bit and forced to defend their thesis and offer up what makes them special. So if this is the kind of thing you want to see more of, please let us know. We're doing many more Right to Invest this year, more road shows, a lot more down on our home base of New York City. If you are building something exciting that's AI enabled, obviously reach out to, and please apply to be on our show. But mostly, without being too cheesy, what you're doing is really hard. You are building, you're investing, you're a part of an innovation ecosystem, and it is not lost on us that is the bravest thing you could be spending your life doing. So in the spirit of all these kinds of events, one more round of applause for yourselves. Yeah.
Woo! Thank you so much for being so welcoming, so kind. I want to come back again.
Me too. We'll see you next year.
So thank you again for all of your support, and we're so excited for more to come.
And go Sabres on three. One, two, three.
Go
Sabres! All right.
Woo!
Have a good afternoon, everybody.